Billy Lewis.
Jake Swartz.
How's it going?
Not bad. We're here.
Yeah, we're here. We're here. I think we owe it to the people that watch this to let them know who we are and why we have any credence to say the things that we say.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's jump right into it.
All right. I guess we're just going to hit it right off the bat with origin stories. Where'd you come from and how'd you get into all this stuff?
Gosh, that's going to. We'll take it back. Born in Cincinnati. My grandmother came up from Hazard, Kentucky. My grandfather came from Portsmouth, Adams County, Ohio. So they came into Cincinnati, find work just like all the Appalachians did, and settled. And my grandma and my grandfather passed whatever kind of country skills they had on to my father. My father passed them on to me, and just had a love for the outdoors. So, and that's just anything. I mean, it was started out backpacking, camping, kayaking, climbing, mountaineering, alpine climbing, then hunting. So it's just anything that can get me in the outdoors is what I do. So go into a lot of detail, but I'm sure we'll get to it.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Well, it was primarily my parents weren't super outdoorsy or anything like that, but both my grandfathers were. My grandfather on my father's side, very, very big avid fisherman, and my grandfather on my mother's side was a big hunter. I talked about him a little bit in the last podcast that we did. He was a huge bird hunter, and he was really the one that kind of sparked it in me to get into hunting. But yeah, then we moved to Kentucky, and
from Northeast Ohio.
Yeah.
From
Northwest Ohio.
Or Northwest, yeah. So you came from the complete opposite direction of
great culture shock like you wouldn't believe. Coming from the north side of Toledo, Ohio to Morning View, Kentucky.
Not to cut you off there, but like you have to understand the dynamic of kind of our region of the country. Like Cincinnati is like the northernmost southern city probably to exist. And so where you're coming from up near Toledo, there I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, not a whole lot of Appalachian culture up there?
None. Zero.
So coming down here to immersed just...
The culture, I would say, back then, this is in the 90s through the early 2000s, the culture was Motown / Midwest, right? I'd say, traveling back up there to see family and stuff today, it's still somewhat that. Just a lot rougher.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming to Kentucky was insane. Deer hunting was popular when I was a kid, but it wasn't. Maybe 1 in 50 people you would run across was a deer hunter. I remember going into people's houses and you'd see a deer on the wall, and it was just this amazing thing to see because people didn't do it. And then coming to Kentucky, where it's the total opposite, 1 in 50 people wasn't a deer hunter. Deer hunting was just, that's what they did. And so I got really involved in deer hunting.
It's our big game.
Huh?
It's our big game.
Yeah,
I mean, it is.
And I learned the hard way that Ohio hunts deer differently than Kentucky. I guess depending on where. Kentucky does not like you moving around. And I'm not saying the state or anything like that. There's no regulation against moving around. People on private land just tend to get all uppity and scared, I guess, if you don't sit in a tree stand.
Yeah, their stands are like a second home.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people do we know that have stands with heater, air conditioning, like whatever the case may be?
Yeah. They've quite literally got, in some cases, apartments on stilts. You know,
Legit. If it was in Manhattan, it could legit be an
it
efficiency.
would
Yeah.
qualify as an efficiency apartment
Yeah.
or a studio. Uh, I mean, I've seen tree stands that are better equipped than some of those. So where you don't have to share a bathroom.
Right down the hall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of like what I get out of it is like us, we are the same as anybody else. Like what we pride ourselves on is like
Yeah.
the hunting heritage that's been passed down
Yeah.
from generation to
I don't
generation.
think I don't think you get I don't think you get to this level of it. And I say this level like I'm somewhere and I'm not. Um, and I mean, we'll get into what I've hunted and where I've hunted, but there's guys that have done way more than I'll ever do, you know, and there's guys that have done it once and that's all they'll ever do it. Um, but I don't think that you get this involved without there being some sort of heritage involved, without, your grandfather having done it. I think it's a very hard thing to just come out of the blue and love so deeply.
Well,
Uh,
and non-hunters don't get that. Like, why go out and shoot this animal? Like, there are a million different reasons you can shoot this animal.
yeah,
One of the biggest parts of us is heritage. It's something that's been passed on.
right.
It's taught us the love for the land, the conservation, the animal, as a whole. Maybe not that specific animal, but like, I love deer, but I'm still going to shoot that deer, right? But
Yes.
I love the idea of what deer stand for, and probably will know much more about deer than a lot of non-hunters will ever know about deer.
Absolutely. Um, one of my favorite debates to get into is with non-hunters. How could you kill that animal? Uh, and the arguments that I don't like to use are the ones that are played, right? Well, I eat off that. That's what I eat. That's how I live off of that meat. No, no, you don't. Uh, I'm sure there are people that do. Um, I know a handful of people that is what they eat, is what they kill. Uh, large and large and wide though, nobody's living like that. Um, or the argument that it's cheaper, right? At one point it was, and I've actually broken this down before and done a cost analysis on being a new hunter, starting up with nothing versus buying meat every day for 10 years, 10 years on both sides of it. Buying that meat at Kroger far outweighs the cost of hunting. It is substantially more expensive to hunt. Um,
You're talking about everything from like gear, ammo,
yes,
your rifle or bow, whatever the case may
everything
be,
from the ground up.
travel.
Now, there are guys like the hunting public that have gone out and they've shown you can do this on a budget at Walmart. This is doable. You can know nothing, you can have nothing, and you can make it happen for.
Well, and those guys are awesome because they're on a completely different end. I mean, when you look at kind of this realm, you're going to see the big guys that are, I mean, just decked out head to toe and sponsorships and big time gear, big time scopes that are going out and doing it, right? No,
Yeah.
no, there's no ill will towards that. But then you have the hunting public. I think the reason those guys like touched me a little bit ago watching their videos is because they did go to Walmart, just randomly bought camo,
They made it
a
attainable.
gun. Yeah, they made it accessible, which is in this day and age, a lot of different realms, just even outside the hunting world, not a lot of accessibility for people.
Hunting is becoming substantially less accessible.
Yeah, right.
And that's something we'll go into a lot in the future, especially with the battle that's going on with public lands right now. If you don't have anywhere to hunt, you're going to lose hunters.
Can't do it.
Yeah, can't do it if you have nowhere to go.
I mean, if you take that element away, like if you take the element or you take the chance for me to go to Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, anywhere out west, right? Name the state, and I need to hone in my skills and buy good scope, good optics, sighted in. Or if I don't have that ability to do that, why am I going to go shoot?
Right.
Right, like, so why would the states at this point, like for example, like Ohio, why would they have shooting ranges? If you're taking away my ability to hunt, what am I shooting for? Self-defense. I'll just buy a pistol and max out at 15 yards.
Yeah.
Right there. I mean, there's just, I think there's a lot of variables that go into this that once certain things happen will transcend the hunting world, the public land, public access. It'll start to transcend and
Yeah.
to something that yeah, it'd be rough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. That's something at some point I would like to dive into deeper is public access. And even knowing, being an East Coaster, my perception of public land was drastically different than what reality is
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how public land works.
Well, if you and my thing is if you take our heritage on the East Coast, like going to a deer camp, right, in Michigan, Wisconsin, going to the deer camp and hanging out, right, that's because your family had the ability to provide that.
Yeah.
And then our friends out west that hunt or guide or whatever, um, the whole idea of hunting and the heritage that was passed on to them is completely
It's
different,
way
way
so
different,
different.
night and different, or
Yeah,
night and day difference.
it is. It I would say that so little of it is the same that outside of the fact that we call it hunting, either way, it's not the same thing.
I mean, you just talked about the difference, and there is like right, like in Kentucky, we're gonna sit in a stand that's like a an apartment in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Hunting differently than what you would in Ohio, which is going to be completely different than what you would hunt, a buck in Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. You go out farther west, you're hunting. your your ability to hunt whitetail is going to be tremendously different
Oh,
than anywhere
absolutely.
here.
Yeah. Whitetail out there, it was something that blew my mind when I found out west that, multiple states out west, you have to draw a tag to hunt a whitetail.
Right.
And that absolutely blew my mind because here in Kentucky, uh, depending on what zone you're in, but here in zone one, you get a buck and unlimited doe. Guaranteed. As soon as you buy that, you buy your deer tags, you get a buck and unlimited doe. Now you get, I believe it's three doe, two or three doe, and then but you can call in, and for a pretty low price, you can just buy another doe tag, and you can just buy them indefinitely.
You see, and then the regulations in Ohio are much different as well. Like you get two tags, right? You get your license and you can buy your two, whitetail,
Yeah,
male, female. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure, but you have a very limited what you can get.
yeah,
Um, uh, Kind of neat though. The heritage part of it is big, and for me, kind of what started was being around my grandfather and shotguns. And I'll get into this a little bit later because guns, being in the gun industry,
right.
is huge in my family. But uh, seeing shotguns and bird dogs and turkeys, and that was kind of my introduction. Um, and then it grew from grouse to quail to woodcock to turkey, which turkey by far is my favorite on the eastern part of the United States. It's
Yeah,
just it's so much better than sitting in a stand, hoping a
I,
deer comes by.
I would agree with that.
But being able to sit behind a blind or wherever you're at and just kind of watching the patterns of these turkey,
Yeah,
listening to them, calling them in, have them come in, post up around your decoys. I mean, it's just something about that. Like you get the same feeling when you're able to call in a bull elk.
yeah,
Like you really do.
yeah. It's the same game. Uh, I think turkey for me. I don't have anything against turkey.
They're good eating.
Uh, but man, I'd say by the time I was 10 years old, I'd never wanted to clean a turkey again. Uh, but that's because there was one way to do it. You know, uh, it was until I was an adult that I realized that people would just breast these things out, and then they weren't cleaning a whole bird.
Filled out a chest, bro.
Yeah,
Got it out.
and I was like, that was terrible.
You
I was like, I don't want to do that ever again.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with that. That's too much work for what you don't get.
Right. Or can we say our cameraman's name?
Yeah.
Sean, like we were talking with Sean earlier, about the diehard bird guys. It's a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
For such a little reward. Love it. They'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work.
The only thing I don't put miles down like that.
Sean, you're all right with that? All right, perfect. Got the thumbs up.
Anywhere but out west. Hunting stuff out west, you don't have a choice but to put miles down.
Well, you have to, yeah.
Now you'll hear about those lucky guys that they'll see a 300-inch bull standing off the side of a road, and while they're walking or driving or whatever, and get out and blast it. They have no real pack out. That doesn't happen. That's a 1 in a million shot. But there's a rare exception that you'll see a bull standing off the side of the road, and you'll get out of the truck, take that shot, and have little to no pack out. Bird hunting, I think, is the equalizer for the East Coast, because there's no way to do it without just putting miles down, and that's part of why I guess that's why I like bird hunting so much, is just because it's active.
Well, you're active, yeah. You're actually doing it. You're not sitting and waiting. That's
waiting.
Compared, when my love for turkey hunting compared to like whitetail. The whitetail, you're just sitting there, right? I mean, if you're managing the property correctly, which takes a lot of work, so there's a lot of action that goes into maintaining the property and keeping a healthy, population coming through. But with turkey, I mean, you're still sitting behind a blind as opposed to a stand, but you're actively engaged in the hunt. Yeah. Like you're talking, you're listening to the way they're speaking. You're speaking turkey, right? Like there's certain chirps that are going to come back, and to know how to respond to that is I don't know, it's fun. Same way with looking at bull elk. I mean, when you're calling in an elk, you're listening to certain calls. You might give a more aggressive call. But it's fun. You're actually involved, not just a bystander waiting for something to happen.
That's something I wish people on the East Coast, and I guess some people in Kentucky do, and in the Carolinas and Virginia now and Tennessee, thanks to that Kentucky elk herd, right? They're getting to witness when you're walking through the forest or up the side of a mountain and you hear a bugle kick off. It's probably the coolest thing you'll ever hear in your life.
Okay. There's a whole outside, when it was in 97 when the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation released, I forget the number, but they released in southeast Kentucky right on reclaimed coal mines.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole tourism push outside hunting. Yep. Just a visit to see elk. In Kentucky.
Yeah, and then you go to places like the Kaibab National Forest in Arizona, and you're quite literally kicking elk out of the way. Right. I mean, and they don't, it doesn't faze anybody out there. And a lot of it's just where you're from.
Well, I hate to, I believe we're going to jump back and forth, but because of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and the release and success, I mean, we got the largest elk herd east of the Mississippi now in Kentucky, right, which is great. There's been some other areas I know, like Virginia,
the
Tennessee.
There's overspill from Kentucky.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're starting to see this expansion, right? And then what else happened? We're starting to see black bear coming in, right?
Yes,
we got black
Hamilton
bears.
County.
Yes, there was in urban Cincinnati, there have been black bear sightings.
Yeah.
So
they're coming back, and that's cool to see.
Right. And then I just heard this year, because we've always had these little sightings of mountain lions, cougars.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the thought is that they were just, male cougars need a lot of land, right? They need a lot of land. So you would have I think a few years ago they tracked one from South Dakota all the way to Connecticut.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to look that up, Sean. But yeah, they tracked a male cougar from South Dakota. I think I don't know the exact path, but ended up in Connecticut. A lot of sightings in Wisconsin. There was a deer hunter. I saw this video. Deer hunter sitting in a stand in Wisconsin, and kind of cougar came up. Um, but they said those are probably just random transplants coming from the west, needing wide, vast swaths of land. That we wouldn't be worried unless you found, mom with some babies around them.
Yeah.
And just in Michigan this year, I think they confirmed a female with.
No way.
That's kind of neat.
That's super cool.
I'm not a biologist, but I like to speculate. Once you have a successful reintroduction of an animal that needs to be here, that is native here,
Yeah.
that you're going to start to bring back
There's
others.
there's a bunch of them that I would love to see come back, that are still around. Back on Michigan would be the wolverine.
Wolverine, oh yeah.
The wolverine, I had heard stories as a kid of guys that had hunted them in Michigan.
Right, and you're from Northwest Ohio, so you're up on that Ohio
Michigan
border.
was my backyard for a good portion of my life up there. Quite literally, there was a fence in our backyard, and on the other side of that fence was Michigan. But I'd heard, you hear stuff from these old men saying that they had hunted wolverines. Well, you get older, look into it. There's no way. The wolverines went out in the 1800s. I believe it might have been before that, but way too long before any of these old men were alive. If you're talking the late 90s, right? These guys weren't 130 years old.
You're right.
You know what I mean? So I don't think, and this is at least Lower Peninsula, UP. Who knows what that? I don't think anybody knows what happens up there.
UP, black bear, moose,
wolves.
Yeah, it's
that the Upper Peninsula is pretty wild.
And all public land too. Just about all public land.
Yes. I'd almost say east of the Mississippi. That's probably the Upper Peninsula might have. I don't want to say the most, but I'd say they're in the top 5 of public land and publicly accessible land.
Yeah, I would say UP again. I would have to look at this with UP, Adirondacks of in New York.
Yeah,
huge amounts of public land. I think that's one of the largest kind of. It's not a national park, but a state park in the country. It's huge.
That's something that, tying into the public land and stuff, state-owned land and how to access it, right? How to be allowed to hunt on it. Because Texas, the biggest state in the lower 48, has a pretty pathetic amount of public land.
They want to charge you for everything.
Yeah. And where in land that is public, you can find it. It's pretty easy to find on Onyx. These huge swaths of public land that's owned by the state. They're not doing anything with it, especially in Southwest Texas. It's just, you'll find stuff, 4,000 acres here that's owned by the Texas Department of Energy. 3,000 acres here that's owned by Texas DOT. But what they're not doing anything with it. And so why isn't it huntable? Especially in Southwest Texas. And a lot of these have, I wouldn't call them mountain ranges, but very large rock formations that I know almost for certain that there's Aoudad in.
And that's where I was going to get at. I was hoping you would go there. So, you would have these transplants of Aoudad on these lands if they were opened up to hunt.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, they've discovered Aoudad in New Mexico,
Oklahoma, California.
Yeah.
And if they're in California, they're in Arizona. They're probably in Nevada.
they've adapted pretty well to.
Well, so where the bighorn sheep, everybody loves the bighorn, right? The likelihood that you'll ever get to hunt one's slim to none. You can go up to Alberta and hunt one, um, if you've got the money to do it.
What's the cost? What's the cost there?
I don't know. I wouldn't even
I mean, we've set
I've
up,
looked it up before.
like my day job. We, the auction company. We've set up at some of the. I mean, again, we want to support conservation, so we set up at the Eastern chapter of the Wild Sheep Foundation. The governor's tag, sold at auction there for $180,000. Like, it's an ungodly amount of money to go hunt something. And to me, that's like the climb. That would be my Super Bowl or my World Series would be hunting, I mean, like going on a wild sheep hunt.
Sheep hunters are just like duck hunters. And I think if you get into the very niche animals and stuff, like, you'll always find this. I've not really seen it. I know there's guys that they're deer hunters through and through. The only thing they care about is whitetail. That's cool, but it's not the same thing. They're not fanatics about it. Right. Like duck hunters and sheep hunters. Guys that you'll meet sheep hunters that the only thing they care about are sheep in the mountains. Nothing else. They'll walk right past a 400-inch bull all day, right? And that doesn't even their ears don't even perk up to that. They don't care about that thing at all. They're after sheep. Yeah. But those same guys hate Aoudad, right? They call Aoudad the poor man's sheep hunt.
Right, I'm a poor man.
And yeah.
But see, that's why it's like the apex for me, like the pinnacle of my hunting career would be a bighorn. Like I want to be at altitude. I've spent a lot of time. One of the other things I enjoy doing outside of hunting is mountain climbing. I love being at altitude. I love being in snow. I know how to read the avalanche hazards. You name it. I love it. And so when you're able to apply these alpine climbing skills with hunting and going after something that's at elevation, like, that would be amazing. But again, I'm a blue collar guy, so I'll just go to Texas for an Aoudad.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I mean, and you've seen it, the Aoudad that's hanging on the wall out there. That is probably the funnest hunt that I don't remember. Me and my buddy Joe, we do a lot of run and gun hunts. And so we'll get a tag in our pockets and we'll go, sometimes with no more than a weekend available to do it. And I'm talking driving across the country driving from Cincinnati to El Paso, Texas, or, like Alamogordo, New Mexico, or Idaho, just to attempt to make it happen. Thankfully, we've been, over the last 5 to 7 years, I'll get corrected on that for sure. We've been extremely successful in our endeavors to do these run and gun hunts out west. That Aoudad hunt, though, if I didn't have pictures and videos and the animal on the wall, I don't remember it. We drove out there Christmas. Yeah, we scouted the day before Christmas Eve. Got down there the day.
Even going to that, like, run and gun hunt, like, so you get the ability to go down. So we'll be a little protective. Won't name what it is, but you got the ability. You got drawn, so you can go hunt an Aoudad in Texas, right? Like, how's that started? But you just kind of tell people, like, so that's such a different animal, right? Like the hunt.
And I knew, and there is. Eventually, we'll do a video about it, a pretty in-depth video, because still to this day, I don't think there's enough in-depth information on how to figure these things out, let alone hunt them successfully.
I've seen a few videos on YouTube, like from certain companies, right? Some of the big guys in this realm, and it's like I've seen them hunt almost like a bighorn. Mm-hmm. And then I've seen one where they were shot, literally like almost in a plains area, just kind of on top of the ridge, walking out in the open. It's like that doesn't make sense. But
Aoudad, in my experience, live in the most inhospitable places in the Southwest.
They're a big sheep. They're a big sheep too. Yeah,
that one that was out there, he was 280 pounds on the hoof. I mean, that's a big animal.
Oh,
Uh,
huge.
uh, if you can look at a mountain and say, one of these desert mountains that's just obliterated sandstone and granite, right? It's just been weathered for the last millennia. Uh, and say, there's nothing but creosote bushes around the bottom, and you see no greenery up top. And you're like, nothing would live there. Aoudad do. That's where they're at. Uh, they're in that stuff that you're like, nothing that big, especially nothing of that size. But how does it sustain itself?
So you had one day to scout.
Yeah. So we get down there, not even a whole day because
Not even scouting
20,
online. You didn't get on Onyx or anything, and
we did have a map of the area, right? Because on this particular draw, on this tag, you are restricted, and it is public land, but you are restricted to where you can and can't go.
gotcha.
And so we knew where that was, and we're looking at it from overhead. Uh, and there's one mountain, one lonely chunk of the Huco Mountains, just this offshoot of the Huco Mountains, sitting kind of by itself. Uh, that's all you really had access to.
That's a different kind of that. For anybody that hasn't been there, that is a different landscape
It is.
altogether.
It's insane. It's not nearly as jagged as like the Northwest, right? It's the topography is definitely more gradual,
Right.
more forgiving, but there are still areas where, unless you're going to free climb 300-400 feet straight up, you're not getting there.
Yeah, I've been there on a couple rock climbing trips as well.
Yeah.
And I mean that was the kind of, I mean, there was talks about how outlaws and Billy the Kid, when he was on the run for a little bit, that he came from New Mexico down into the Tanks area and hid out.
Yeah, the Tanks. No, I've never heard anybody that doesn't.
The Tanks, man. I've been there.
Yeah.
Been on there a couple climbing trips. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, that's where this is, just south of the Huco Tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get down there. By the time we got down there, it's a 24-hour drive straight through, nonstop, stopping only for gas. It's 24 hours from here to El Paso. We did the drive straight through. We get down there, tired as sin, knowing that we're going to run out of daylight. Let's go scout. We'd probably seen.
It would either been Scout or Juarez. Scout.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a good time down there no matter what. And I will talk more in depth at some point, and either a podcast with somebody from down there, or once we get in more specifically into the animals that I hunt. But it's the place that we stay, and it's camp. It's backcountry camping. Rooftop tents.
Mm-hmm.
You are overlanding your way back there. It's a good time no matter what. And so had we not scouted, like, we'd have just ended up out in the desert somewhere, not scouting. But yeah, no, we get down there. We know we only have a couple hours to get this done before it gets dark, and just try to get an idea of where to go, because we have nothing. We're going in blind. We know this is the area that we have, and we know that these things live on mountains.
Did you ever get nervous about being that close to, like, Mexico?
Never.
Okay.
Never. I've never had an issue with stuff like that.
I was just thinking kind of like, not necessarily the border or anything that's going on, but just getting out scouting, kind of losing track of where you're at. And it's like, we're pushing the border.
Yes. Yeah, we were actually pig hunting, and I'll come back to what I'm talking about the Aoudad. But we were pig hunting in Van Horn, in southern Van Horn, and you're on the border. You know what I mean? And you could 110% without noticing it walk into Mexico, because the Rio Grande out that far, especially during the summer, It's the Rio Trickle.
But see, yeah,
Uh,
that's what I would say. Is like for our perspective up here, watching it, not even getting into that kind of stuff, but watching the news, you'd see the Rio Grande. You think, man, that's a huge river.
yeah,
You get
yeah.
down by the
You would
tanks
think
area, whereas it's
it's
yeah,
nothing.
it's
It's a
nothing.
concrete pit
Yeah, right.
with no water in it.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, and then you get out, you get out east and look at the Rio Grande. In some places there's water, but especially when in the middle of summer, there's nothing
Nothing.
there. And so to say if you don't have an active GPS, your phone's not going to do it for you. If you've got Starlink, you're fine, but that didn't exist then. Um, yeah, if you don't have a Garmin, you're up a creek.
Yeah.
You are at the mercy of your own directional capabilities. Um, and walking into Mexico is definitely something you could do.
See, I would be
Back,
nervous about that, but
I want to say it was somewhere between 2010 and 2012. A Marine got arrested in Mexico with a bunch of guns and stuff, and he said he was hunting. And a lot of people didn't believe it because they said, "How do you just end up in Mexico?" Well, from you know armchair quarterbacking from Cincinnati, not understanding anything. It's yeah. How do you just accidentally end up in Mexico while you're hunting? I can tell you how you accidentally end up in
what
Mexico while you're
happens?
hunting. It is insanely easy to do. Uh, Way easier than most people would ever think. You get into these big cities and stuff, and this is without bringing the politics of it into it. Uh, that's I think a large issue with the border is a lot of people believe that it's substantially more secure than it is, and there's portions where there is nothing. You know, you look at it from El Paso and you see this big, beautiful green fence that goes up to the mountains on both, the top of the mountains on both sides.
Big Mexican flag, big American flag.
Yeah, go east of those mountains. There's no fence. There's nothing. Nothing to stop anybody. And so, as far as accidentally ending up in Mexico, that's possible
Totally happened.
all day. But back to the Aoudad, we only had, you know, I would say max 5 hours to scout. We get down there, drive around, and we're doing 90%. We had such a large area to cover that we're just driving and glassing mountainsides, looking for something. These things blend in so well to their environment. I mean, they are absolute ghosts. We rolled up on a herd of probably 60, 65 of them and we're looking right at them from 70, 80 yards away.
Didn't
No
notice.
idea they were there until they started moving. Uh, and you'll hear them before you see them most of the time. You'll hear their hooves clacking, and to watch these things run up a vertical cliff face, it is wild. And then you look at their hooves, and they're not. I mean, they're pretty rounded. Like, at least the dude I shot, uh, that dude, his hooves were pretty round. And you wouldn't think that would be the greatest thing in the world for climbing these sheer faces and stuff, but they do it.
Like a
And
completely different structure than say like a bighorn or
yeah,
desert bighorn.
I would say desert bighorn are probably going to be pretty close, but
Close.
I don't think desert bighorn can do what Aoudad do. Um, there's going to be contractors to that because guys hate Aoudad. The bighorn is always better. And where I'm looking at it, yes, they're an invasive species. They're introduced. I wouldn't even call them invasive. They're introduced and then they won.
Right.
They're survival of the fittest, and the Aoudad's winning. Um, they'll eat what bighorn won't. They'll they're they're a significantly more robust animal than the bighorn. As far as survivability goes alone, they're better at it. And yeah, there's disease, and I think the argument of the Aoudad are like transcommunicating diseases to the bighorn that the bighorn wouldn't have without the Aoudad being there is just an excuse to exterminate them. Uh, and this is something that didn't make the news everywhere that I thought it should have. and I don't have the exact number, but Texas and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife wiped out a huge population of Aoudad just outside of El Paso for reintroduction of the bighorn. Uh, there was I want to say it was a mouflon. I don't know the type of sheep that it actually was, but it wasn't something you would see out there. But it just lived out on Trans Mountain outside of El Paso, and they actually killed that thing in favor, like, for the bighorn to come back in, on top of, you know, whatever the number was of Aoudad that they killed to bring bighorn back. Uh, and I don't want to see bighorn gone at all. I think, especially as far as southwestern culture goes, the desert bighorn is a staple of that.
Right.
You know, cowboys were engraving bighorns into the stocks of their rifles and into their leather goods. You know, back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, well, all the way through the 1800s. Like, that is an animal that is just as big of a staple of the American West as the pronghorn. But I think the Aoudad, no matter what, unless you launch a mass extermination and just dwindle their numbers to nothing, they will always beat out the bighorn.
It's bigger, like you said, more robust.
Within 10
animal.
pounds. I mean, a good bighorn will almost go pound for pound with an Aoudad. But there's no record of it that I've ever found. I think an Aoudad could physically handle a bighorn sheep, push it around. I just think they're close enough to this, the same thing, but they're still drastically different. And the Aoudad is better at doing all the things that the bighorn does than the bighorn is. But yeah, so we get out there, scout, run into. I want to say that night we saw somewhere between 70 and 80 Aoudad in total. Which, if you're talking to a deer hunter, that's a ton of deer, right? When you're talking about elk, that's a ton of elk in one area. With Aoudad, you may never see them again. We have to go. We can't stay there. We can't camp there, right? So we have to leave and go across the highway at sundown. The likelihood that those sheep are rolling back up tomorrow is slim to none.
Right, they're gone.
You kind of got to get them while you can, because they're going to come down off that mountain at night to graze, and they might not go back up that mountain. They might say, we like that mountain 40 miles on the horizon that way, so get to running. And those Aoudad just aren't there. That's another thing with them. I would call them sheep, but then sometimes you look at them and you say that's a goat. They are more closely related to goats than sheep. They're just, I think, characteristically, they look more like a sheep than a goat. Like, you can look at an ibex and say that's a goat.
Right.
Right. You can look at a mountain goat and say that's a goat.
It's a goat.
Right. Look at an Aoudad. Looks an awful lot like a sheep to me.
Yeah, I'd have to concur.
Yeah.
With you on that one.
But it is a goat, or so they say. But they've been called sheep, and since time immemorial, and I'll continue to call them sheep. But yeah, so we leave, see these animals, leave, go camp, wake up the next morning, it's 18 degrees. Yeah.
In the desert, yeah.
In the desert. Ice blowing sideways. It was miserable. And my buddy Joe tells this story better than I do. If somebody could draw you a picture of what done looked like, I was it. I was just done. I was cold. I'd had a really horrible experience that morning with trying to use the bathroom and ice, frozen baby wipes. It was just a bad time, and I wasn't happy. I was like, we're not going to see anything because a lot of it was just the unknown, right? I don't know these animals. I don't know how they act. I don't know how they tolerate the cold. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Um, are they going to bed down until the sun, until the midday sun's up, and then start rolling around once the temperature starts to break? Or they, I can't imagine that they, with all that wind and everything, I can't imagine they'd be up on top of these mountains, right? So they got to be down in the bottoms. But if they're down in the bottoms, we're not going to see them because they're laid down below the brush. Uh, we're driving around, getting out, glassing, not climbing anything just because it didn't feel right. Uh, and again, I was done. I was okay going home empty-handed. I was okay not even trying anymore. I was done. And I have a picture of it. I believe I've shown you before. I might not have. We're glassing the side of this mountain, uh, and 2D looking at it from
Yeah, I remember you
you know
telling me this. Yeah.
400 to 600 yards away. It looks like a flat face. Looking up at the top of this thing, there's a female Aoudad, skylining herself, and you can see her plain as day, right? But from us to her, it's probably 800 yards or better, and you can, I mean, draw that shape. And then this ram comes and stands next to her. Holy cow! Right? They're here. Well, they dip down over the edge, and looking at it through spotting scopes and binoculars in 2D, you're trying to read how they're going to come
Right.
down this, and it looks like they had just kind of shot behind this outcrop, and then they have to come back to the face. But again, you're looking at it in 2D. You have no
2D. Yeah.
idea what's back there. So that was enough to get out of the truck. And I didn't bring anything. I didn't bring my pack. Nothing. Water. I didn't bring anything. I brought the rifle. Uh, no tripod. Nothing. And so we're walking up to what we believe to be the base of this mountain, and realize that we pass this outcrop, and realize that this isn't, we weren't looking at a 2D mountain. We were looking at overlapping mountains. And there's this whole insane canyon system in there. And I mean, I'm looking back in this thing, and it is just jagged and rough, and it goes back forever, with multiple little, separate smaller canyons. Uh, and it's like, oh boy, right? We're hunting now. And so we're standing there and I can't tell you what was going through his head, but through mine, I'm like, do I even want to walk, all the way back to the truck? Because now we're roughly a mile from the truck. And I'm like, do I want to walk back to the truck, get my pack, and really go after these things? Right? Go into this canyon where the odds are not in your favor, and something like that. They're above you. They're gonna hear and see you from
Right.
forever away. The only sign you're gonna even have that they were there is hearing hooves clack, right? The echo. So we're standing there, and out in the distance, down one of these canyons, I see these two black dots bouncing. Right? And I was like, what is this? Pull up the rifle, crank the zoom up. It's javelina. There's two
Wow.
javelina at the end of this canyon, just like screwing with each other. And I was like, wow, like this is like I'm just lost in the sauce watching these javelina. And my buddy taps me and he's like, look. So I dial the magnification back. 1 Aoudad, 2 Aoudad, 3 Aoudad, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a bachelor group of rams in that same canyon. And I'm looking over them. You know what I mean? Looking at these javelina at the end of the canyon. And I'm looking right over all these sheep. And so now we're scrambling.
So that's how well they blended in, like they blended in, like
Yeah.
they camouflaged. Like you could see the javelina.
Yeah.
in a much farther
I could
distance.
see the javelina with the naked eye at almost 600 yards.
Right.
Uh,
See, that's crazy. I mean, that's amazing that they're able to blend in like that.
didn't see them at all. So we're scrambling. He actually took I took the camera tripod to use as a rest to shoot off of, because the closest I probably could have shot at one that was right at 250. And the only reason I ended up shooting the ram that I did is because if you look at him from the side, uh, he's got black in his beard and running down his chest. He was the only one that was different between, like, he had distinguishing markings. Horns looked, roughly the same on all of them. So I figured, you're different. You're getting it.
You gotta go.
336 yards, 300 Win Mag. Zapped him. He slid down the canyon. As soon as he hits the bottom of the canyon, and these animals, especially where they live, they're not startled by loud bangs. They just kind of moseyed those other 6 or 7 Aoudad. They just kind of started moseying up the side of the canyon. They weren't running. They just, all right, Bill's dead. We're walking off.
Moving on.
And as I'm watching them walk up the side of this canyon, and this absolute horse, the grand old man, stands up in the bottom of this dry creek bed, and just off of his horns alone, coming up above the brush, you could just tell that this was the big guy, and he had this cool tricolored coat, right, of blonde, brown, and dark brown. His chaps were dark. Beautiful animal. That would have been the one. That would have been the one to have. And it had, and it's again not knowing until you know. That dude could have been getting ready to stand up. What if had I held that shot for another 40 seconds, would that guy have stood up? And I don't think that's something you can ever put on yourself, because those are unknowns that you can't account for.
You can't do it. That's why I never.
Yeah. Is that the biggest Aoudad to ever come out of Southwest Texas? No. It's 28.5 inches. He's not huge by any means. But I think he's pretty cool.
Yeah. Is it yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you eat him?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I actually I made tacos out of him probably 2 weeks ago.
How much more you got of him left?
Not much, but if you want some, I'll give you some.
Absolutely. That's how I had to slide that in there.
I got a lot of Gemsbuck. Got a lot of Oryx left. But I'm stingy with that stuff because I never know. Those tags are so few and far between for us that it's for the Oryx that it's just every time could be the last time. I think we were very lucky as a group for quite a few years on drawing these tags. And then last year we hit our first no-go for anybody. And so, I mean, it's a little disheartening, but that's draw tags. That's the life of hunting out west, is especially in states that are primarily draw. I don't want to say exotic, but your bigger game.
Right.
Most states are draw for elk, unless you get over the counter. But everybody knows you don't.
That's changing,
right? And that over the counter tags, especially in Colorado, suck.
Essentially, I knew when I was going out there it was just a backpacking trip.
Yeah,
it was just
with a rifle.
Just a backpacking trip.
Yeah,
but like you said before, you never know unless you go.
Yeah,
you got to give it a go. And even kind of tying it back in, but just listen to this whole story about one hunt.
Yeah,
right. That's why we do this.
Absolutely,
that's absolutely why we do this. I mean, just that 20-minute conversation bringing us back into that moment of why we do what we do, right? And then there's all these other elements that come off of it, like the conservation. becoming one with the land, kind of respecting the land, the environment, respecting the animals that we hunt, appreciating public lands. There's so many other things that
Yeah.
because we like to do this, we now encompass this whole world that's bigger than us.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, excuse my language, it's fucking amazing. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know anywhere else that does it. I mean, choose a sports, any sport where it's just bigger than you. Like, like if you go tennis, right? Like, I mean, tennis, what are they conserving? Rubber? I mean, like,
Nothing.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like these other sports they're great, nothing against them. But when you get into the hunting and the fishing and the outdoor realm, and you participate in these activities, it becomes bigger than the activity itself,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. I mean, that's, yeah, but I would have never thought, my hunting career would have brought me into getting involved with the National Wild Turkey Federation or Pheasants Forever, just contributing money, being able to get to the point where we could contribute to backcountry hunters and anglers, and just
Yeah.
getting involved with these conservation groups to ensure that we have these animals to hunt, that the populations are there, that they're healthy populations, but we also have the land and the access to do so. So it's just kind of bringing it back full story of why we do this.
Yeah.
Like the
No,
story,
it's
because that's going to be a story you're going to pass on to your kids and
absolutely.
grandkids, and that's what my grandfather did to me.
Yeah. And I mean, there's that trip is that, and that's what I remember of that trip, right? I'm sure there's so much more to that than, but between the I mean, it was just pure sleep deprivation. So we left the day before Christmas Eve, right? It's a 24-hour drive down there. Uh, well, pretty essentially 2 days before Christmas Eve. Get down there. I shot that out on Christmas Eve. I was home by 8 o'clock Christmas morning. So, I
So
mean, that tells you how fast that went from the time that animal went down, right, till we were in the truck with a caped and quartered animal uh, and back home. I was in my driveway by 8 o'clock Christmas morning.
and you still celebrated Christmas with the family
Yeah,
with an Aoudad.
yeah. Uh, that was, I don't recommend it, but I wouldn't get to have done most of the stuff that I've done uh, as a hunter had it not been for my willingness to just live through some suck for a few
Right.
days.
But that's the life. That's the life we choose to live, right? Like, I mean, these running gun hunts, like you just said, that's living where we do in the country. Yes, we go whitetail hunt. That's nothing. We can go turkey hunt. Quail. We can go do that. But they go on like the adventure of hunting elk, mule deer, good sized black bear.
Yeah,
These are running gun type things where we got to plan. You got to do as much research as you can prior to leaving, and then you go execute on a plan. And you
yeah.
don't have no idea if that's going to work or not.
Zero.
Like zero.
Zero. You're not, most of the time, you're not going to get any scouting time. And I'm so jealous of the guys that live out west, even within 10 hours of these places, that, they can take a weekend and go
Yeah,
scout
right.
a month beforehand, or a few weeks beforehand. And there's just no way driving, especially. I've flown for a couple of hunts out west, and it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
Um, you save, you really don't save any time. You spend so much time in layovers and at airports and stuff that you spend an entire day flying. And I'm like, from here to Loma, Idaho, is it 26 hours or something?
Yeah.
27 hours. Why am I going to spend a whole day in an airport when I could just spend an entire day in my truck? Especially if I've got a buddy or two going with me, that's cake.
Oh, and you get to see the landscape the
Yeah.
whole time traveling west, as
Yeah.
opposed to just the flyover. Like,
Man, I have pictures from all over the country. Those flyover states that people just don't go through. I've been all over the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, uh, solely getting somewhere else. But it's like you don't get to see and experience a lot of these places, and even really like the cultures of these states
right.
without going through them.
I mean, like, a goal for me. Like Jake, I know that this is your baby, man. Like being able to come on this journey with you, starting a podcast, and Ridgeback. Like this is exciting, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm super stoked to be a part of it. But it's about celebrating the grind.
Yeah.
Not the end result, right? Like we see too many people that in a half hour you witness a successful hunt, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen. I mean, that rarely happens.
No. And ultimately, I want to show people the failed hunts
Yeah,
too.
I want the grind. I want to celebrate the people that you've never heard of, you'll never hear of, you'll
Yeah.
never see them on Facebook or any of the socials. They're just out there doing it.
Yeah.
These are guys that get it done. Like they
Yeah.
just go out and do it. They don't brag about it. I mean, they don't have to do that. Like they just
No.
do it out of the pure fact that they love this. Like
Yeah.
this
And
is
I
what
mean,
that's what they're bred for.
you get in front of those guys, and they don't need to brag about it.
No.
Right? They themselves are their own trophy. You know what I mean? Um, you can watch how somebody reads a forest and tracks an animal and just stand there in awe, right? About like they have something. It's so rare, I think, in anything in life to find somebody with something you don't have, to see something that primitive that somebody has that you don't have, and they're so in tune with it and so proficient at it, you know, especially when it comes to tracking game. Uh, it's amazing. It's amazing to see those people, but those people aren't on. You're not seeing those people, even doing something as small as what we're doing right now. You're not. Those people don't need to talk about it.
Yeah,
You know.
they could care less.
Yeah.
Because by the time they take the time to do something with us or pretty much anybody else in this space, I mean, that's if you look at the opportunity cost, they've wasted 2-3 days out
Yeah.
scouting or whatever it is they do. And that's, I mean, I would hope that would be the goal of what we accomplish. It's celebrating the guys that just go out there and get it done, not not the guys that say, look at me, I shot this big thing and
Yeah.
I posted on my half-hour show. Like, nah. I mean, I know we're kind of doing that, but it's just a celebration of everything that these guys work hard for to do,
Yeah.
and they just make it happen. They just make it happen.
Yeah. And I don't think with this would I ever want to claim I am no better a hunter than any other hunter out there. Uh, I've been blessed with some amazing opportunities in the realm of hunting uh, that most people don't get. Uh, and I will never talk about what's hanging on the wall in that room here. You know, um, I've never liked the braggadocious hunter.
I don't care what the result is. I care about the methodology, and I've always been a person like just kind of a as to be a reference like a do-it-yourself kind of like punk rock dude, where it was just like I don't give a shit. Like I can read these books.
Yeah.
I could learn how to put out food plots and things like that. Uh, but I want to get out there and get it. Like I just want to get out there and do it myself. Like I want to go out on a failed hunt,
Yeah.
realize what I did wrong, so the next time I go out, like I that's just I mean, that's how I learned whitetail hunting. I
One of
probably
my
made so many mistakes, but those mistakes are, I mean, they're learning opportunities that's made me the hunter that I've become,
yeah, one
and
of
I
my
wouldn't trade it in.
favorite hunting trips ever was a failed black bear hunt. I went out there and I failed in every way possible, you know, um, and I got sick. It was a bad time all the way around. One of the best experiences I've ever had in my life, and I remember every minute of that trip, and that was 2 weeks long. And a lot of guys don't get that time. I've been very blessed with the ability to have the
Right.
time to spend 2 weeks here and 2 weeks there and a week here, right? Or even 4 days. Now, I'm kind of in a little bit different spot in my life where I don't, that time isn't there so much anymore. I have to plan for it a lot harder than I used to. Uh, for just the time, you know, getting there, whatever, but just the time to be able to do it is harder. And I know there's a lot of guys out there in a worse, I don't want to say a worse situation, um, but where it's like that 2 weeks might only come every 5 or 6 years.
Right.
You know, that week might only be every 5 or 6 years to where, and so it's really got to count. And so getting out there and then failing isn't something that I think most people will relish in so much. Um, but that, I mean, that's top three for me is that failed bear hunt. I learned a lot about bears. I learned a lot, a lot about mountains, and just stuff you would never learn growing up on the East Coast. Just like hard lessons that nobody on the East Coast is in shape enough to deal with it. You know,
I mean, it's a whole.
it is a whole different ball game. You get out there in those mountains, and you can spend time preparing, and you're still going to need 2 or 3 days. You know, to I mean, you're not even going to acclimate. It takes generally 2 weeks for your body to acclimate completely, and so by the time you're there, you're leaving. You know, so you really should just be ready to embrace the suck for a couple weeks and just know that it's going to be a bad time and it's not
Embrace
going
the
to be
suck.
easy. Yeah. You are going to be riding the struggle bus the
Dude,
whole time.
I'm embracing the suck right now because I got to use the restroom.
um,
Can we take a break?
yeah.
So, back from embracing the pain there, my bladder was going to burst, but
Yeah. No, you're good, man.
hated to break us off on that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, especially as an eastern lowlander going out west, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck for almost your entire trip.
When this were like, so as anybody that's backpacked before and you go out west, if you're on a designated trail, you're gonna have a bunch of switchbacks that are gonna gradually get you the altitude.
Yeah.
Well, we do.
No, when you're
Completely
out there
different.
hunting and you're riding ridges, you don't get to choose. A lot of the time, you don't get a trail.
Right.
Uh,
It's the path of least
get
resistance, which is going to essentially go straight up.
straight up. Just get up. The faster you can get up there, the better off you are.
Right.
Let it suck getting up there. Get up there and take a nap. Right. Just
Well, it can
get up there.
messes up your whole hunt too. I mean, when you kind of think about thermals and
Yeah.
kind of where's my scent going to go? I need to get up there
Especially
by
if
this
you're
specific time.
That's something that, as a deer hunter, you are never ever taught about bears or predators at all. Really, I know guys that hunt coyote that actively, while they're pretending to hunt coyote, they smoke cigarettes. Um, you're not going to see a coyote,
Yeah.
Sean. Um,
Just different. I mean, it's just
yeah, no, and like those bears can pick you up if you're on the wind and the wind's blowing right. That bear can pick you up from almost a mile.
oh yeah, oh
You know?
absolutely.
And where their smell doesn't get you, their ears will. Uh, I mean, they do everything way better. They're like just like most animals, they do everything in nature better than we do. Uh, it is very rare that you're going to sneak up on a bear. 9 out of 10, that animal's already got the high ground on you.
So if you're going to get out, what point being, if you're Eastern lowlander and you're going to go out west, get in shape.
Get in shape.
Get in shape.
Get in shape.
Even if you're going
Learn
through
from
a
my
guide
failures.
service, get in shape.
And because either get in shape or you just better be tough, because it's gonna suck. Thankfully,
it just sucks less if you're in shape.
Yeah.
But even if you're
It's
in
still
shape,
gonna
you're
suck.
still it's still a grind. Like,
Yeah.
you're still just grinding this out.
Yep, you're gonna be sweaty and nasty and not able to breathe, and it's But it's so worth it. It's the most fulfilling stuff I've ever done in my life.
Headaches from being at altitude when you're not used to it.
Yeah,
I mean, just there's and even getting into the fact like when you're ready to pull the trigger on something. I mean, you still have all these little variables going on that you
yeah,
have to fight through.
yeah. Solely because of the elevation, um, and the weather in the mountains is you could be in the low of a saddle and it's bright and sunny, and then you get up to the next peak, right, or the next ridge, and you're in the middle of a thunderstorm with the sun out and no clouds.
Oh, and by the way, that's just to get the shot off.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, what happens after the shot? So now you've successfully
yeah. You shot an
shot
animal,
this
whatever it
animal.
is, bear, elk. Um,
They could be 600 yards away.
yeah, it could be. Say you made a bad shot on an elk. Oh my gosh. If it runs into a drainage that there's not a road at the bottom of, and your only option is, me personally, I would never go back up with something, you know, like if you're down at the bottom of a drainage and you're down, let's say you've come down 2,000 feet following this thing down this drainage, just keep going
Yeah,
down.
just go down. Yeah.
Just go down. Don't go back up. Like you're gonna murder yourself to get back out with. You don't go back up. Uh, Hopefully you've got a Garmin and friends in the area. But if you don't, that's a whole different ball game. If you don't know anybody and you were just out there solo hunting it, in Colorado, Montana, Idaho, and you don't have a prayer. There's nobody, and you don't have an inReach and whatever, and you're doing this thing on your own, and you're in the bottom of some crazy drainage with no way out. Hopefully, it's not after 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Embrace the suck
because you're spending the night.
Coming back to it, embrace the suck. We do this because we love it.
Yeah, yeah. There's just suck all the time, and I think you'll see people that get out and they realize that it sucks, and it instantly turns them off to it, and they're like, "This is dumb. I'm going back to the deer woods," right? Or it ruins hunting for them altogether. I don't think you can, and I mean, there's people that do. Um, and I've said it to you before. Hunting out west ruined deer hunting for me.
Oh yeah, well, it goes two ways, like you said, right?
Yeah.
Like you love it, and
I love the heritage of deer hunting. I love the tradition of whitetail for me. The activity of doing it and riding a stand for 4 to 8 hours just sounds miserable to me anymore.
Oh, it is.
It's
a whole different kind of
sitting in a blind all day. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to bow hunt on the ground.
Well, unless you're like some of these Kentucky guys that have a whole condominium up in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's different, and that's the exception. But
there's a lot of there's guys like that out in Arkansas too, and it looks like single wide trailers on stilts.
On stilts, yeah.
And it's like, at what point is it not hunting anymore?
Right.
Right.
Hunting. I mean, the whole point of hunting, like the reason I got into hunting as much as I did was love shooting. I've been going back, like I'm third generation in the gun business. My grandfather's in the National Muzzle Loading Rifle Association's Gunmaker Hall of Fame. He made target pistols for percussion shooters and so forth. And then my father followed along on the historical side. I mean, he's great on like Springfield Arsenal, Frankfurt Arsenal.
Yeah.
On the military side, I mean, my father's contributed to several of the books. He's worked with the Department of Defense, so I mean, like, just have this long line of both on the smithing side and the historical side. So, getting in the gun business, it was just kind of a natural step for me.
Yeah.
But hunting is just another means to be outside.
Yeah.
Like just shooting. I mean, I can't stand indoor ranges. If I got to shoot, I got to be outside. I want to be in the element. I want to embrace it. Going back to it, embracing the suck. I mean, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's being in the element. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
I don't think you learn anything standing on a 25-yard indoor range.
Not at all.
If you don't, I get it for new shooters, for brand new shooters, right? Picking up the fundamentals and figuring out all the basics. That's if that's what you have, if that's what you have access to, is that 25-yard indoor. Burn it down, right? Use that puppy to death, because something's better than nothing. But I think once you factor in the outdoor elements into shooting, you're not, and this isn't defensive pistols or anything. I'm talking rifles, shooting rifles at distance, the respectable distances that you would hunt at.
Right.
And these days, that distance is getting longer, where the world of PRS shooting is starting to blend with the world of hunting.
Well, yeah, you're starting to see that. Yeah, absolutely. Like the NRL hunter matches and things like that.
Yeah,
You're starting
to see guys that will comfortably take 1,200-yard shots.
Although, did you see where, I think it was Wyoming? You might have to look this up, Sean, but one of the states was actually looking at kind of setting a standard at how far you can shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have always believed that there is an ethical distance. And mine, personally, 600 yards.
That's fair.
Outside of 600 yards, get closer.
Dude's flexing.
Yeah.
I mean, why shoot an elk at 700 yards when I know archery guys that can get in?
And if you're
close to the distance at 65 yards.
If you're gonna shoot from ridge to ridge, right? Say you shoot 1,100 yards from ridge to ridge, and you shoot this elk, you've got a 6-hour hike ahead of you.
Oh yeah.
Just hypothetically, you're gonna go down into that drainage and up the other side, and it's gonna take you all day.
Well, then you gotta find.
You
gotta find it.
Hopefully, it's good late season and it's cold, right? And hopefully, the wolves don't find it before you do.
Exactly.
Right. I think that kind of shot, unless you've got multiple people on the ground that are there to help you, and you can have somebody get closer than you are to that animal and go get hands-on with it sooner, I think ethics start to come into play at distance. And ridge to ridge, to me, is unethical without... there's no way you do it right without multiple people involved.
Right.
Which brings up its own issues as far as legality goes and everything. Because who's to say, if you've got people on standby for you shooting this thing, who's to say that you don't have people texting and calling you where this bull's standing right now?
Right.
Which, depending on the state, you're opening yourself up, to legal problems. And I think...
So for like any non-hunter out there that perhaps gives us a listen, there are a lot of standards that we have to follow, right? Yes. Like, yeah, I mean, it's not as easy or as simple as one would think. Hunters do have ethics. We are good people.
Yeah, yeah, and I've had this argument before with non-hunters, and I promise I care more about those animals than you do.
Right. Get back to, I know more about deer as a whole, not that singular deer that I'm going to harvest. And I mean, use the word harvest. I mean, that's just a softer word to say, I'm going to kill this thing, yes. Right? Like, I mean,
I would like to see the hunting industry get away from that.
Yeah.
I get that it's softer for the non-hunters and it's an easier landing when you're trying to plead your case. But I'm a realist at the end of the day, and let's just call it what it is. Like, we're out here.
I am going to kill that thing.
I'm going to kill this animal.
And that animal, I have profound respect for that animal, which is why it is hard. I mean, there's a huge responsibility that comes with pulling that trigger on that animal. You're about to take its life.
You are killing that animal. You are taking its life.
Right.
And I've always said this, and I've talked to Sean about it in the past. And I've always believed that if you don't feel something, I'm not saying you have to be remorseful and you have to be kicking yourself because you killed something, but if you don't feel something, right, whether it's admiration or remorse or something for that animal, you don't need to be doing it,
Right.
right? There's something is broken. Uh, even from the predator prey standpoint, right? Like that animal gave its life for you.
Right.
You know?
You were going to survive. You were going to eat. You're going to have food
Yeah,
that this animal sacrificed
yeah,
for you to be able to enjoy.
yeah, and at some point, at a very basic level, I think you have to give that respect. Uh, I, I think that's. I don't want to say it's completely lost, but I've seen a growing lack of it amongst hunters,
Absolutely.
um, and not everywhere, uh, but you know,
My first bad shot on a whitetail almost made me want to quit.
yeah,
I mean,
it
it broke my
should.
heart. It's just that I mean, just that feeling that you had to carry, like that despair, like
Mm-hmm.
this shouldn't have happened. I should have been a better shot. I should have been,
Yeah,
better at this. I mean, it was, an archery hunt, and you
I've taken a shot
just
on.
can't find it.
I've taken a shot on an animal I had no business taking. I said 20 seconds before I took the shot, verbally said, I am not comfortable, right? I was not, I was laying in a weird position. I had rocks stabbing me. I wasn't comfortable to take that shot. And I took a bad shot and I whiffed it and I injured that animal, you know? And so we spent the next 4 hours tracking this wounded animal, uh, just so I could, at this point, put it out of the misery that I caused it. And that should hurt you. That should, like, this thing wasn't, these animals that we hunt, they don't deserve to die. They didn't do anything to warrant what we give them.
Right.
It's the food chain.
Right. I mean, it's a cycle of life as well. I mean,
Yeah,
if it's not us, it's another
it's something
predator.
else.
It's
Something
something
else is
else.
going to eat it.
Right. I mean, that's just the way that it is, and we're living it out where a lot of people in society don't. I mean, they're able to go buy something at the grocery and they're fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas uh, I'm taking the profound respect that that I have for this animal to be able to put it on the table.
Most people couldn't stomach where their food comes from.
No, not at all.
They see cows and stuff, uh, and people. I mean, it's not like they don't know. That's beef, right? Uh, Everybody sees chickens running around. But then when you get the act of turning get to the act of turning that animal into food, that's where people draw the line, and they're like, I'm willing to accept that what I'm eating is this, but I don't want to know from cow walking around in a pasture to steak on plate. Anything in between that, I don't want to talk about. And I think hunters get them probably outside of and I don't know how many of them are out there, a standalone ranch that also slaughters their own beef. I don't know if I'm not going to say anything like that exists because I don't know. I'm sure it does, but outside of something like that where it's the same person as hands on with that animal from the moment it dies until it's steak on a plate, uh, I don't. Hunting is as intimate as you get with your food.
Right.
You know, from this, and not everybody does it. Not everybody is as in depth as I am with it. From the time the animal goes down, the time it dies until it is on a plate, it's me, right? Uh, I know what's in that meat. I know where it came from. You know, there's no being upset about steaks because I'm the one that cut them. And it's just I, I I like that. I think there's something really cool about being able to pull something out of the freezer and being like, I handled this every step of the way.
I think it goes back to you know, it's a primal instinct, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it for me it is. Um, as a hunter, at one point in time, we were all hunters and gatherers, right?
Yep. You
And
are here today because somebody killed their own food.
right, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just being able to continue again, going back to the heritage, carrying on that heritage and that tradition. Uh, God forbid another apocalypse,
Right.
happens. You go back a few years ago with yeah, the shutdowns and all that, and I had no fear. You
Yeah.
know what? I go to a park. I know how to kill a squirrel, rabbit, whatever the case may be. I would know how to put food on my table for my family to survive.
Yeah.
I had no worry at all about grocery stores, shutting up and
Mm-mm.
meat going bad. Had no worry about that because I
Yep.
can handle it.
Yeah. No. And that there's plenty of these little community ponds out there that are full of bluegill.
No bluegill. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh absolutely crappie. I mean, we've been talking about hunting, but not even the fishing
Yeah.
aspect of it, right? Like
Yeah.
it came down
I
to it,
would
and run
say
a
I'm
trout line.
I'm much more of a hunter than I am a fisherman. I do like fishing, but fishing for me has always been ancillary. It's something I do while I'm doing this. Like I'm hunting here, so I'm going to take, you know, poles and tackle, and I'm going to fish while I'm in my downtime. But I haven't traveled to fish since high school.
Like growing up on the Ohio River, it's just here, right? Like
Yeah,
wherever we're at, if we go to my parents' campground, it's right on the Ohio River. Guess what I'm going to bring with me? I mean, it's just there. So I don't ever pursue the sport of fishing like I do hunting,
yeah,
but it is something that I do because it's here.
yeah. And fishing, there's so many different avenues to get into for fishing. Uh, you've got your saltwater, you've got your shore fishermen, and your deep water fishermen, right? Uh, those offshore guys are crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like duck hunters. They're just a different breed uh, that only care about this thing. And good on them. But
Too much
and
of
then fly fishing. Um, fly fishing, I think, that takes so much patience that I really don't think a lot of people have it to become proficient in fly fishing. Um,
I mean, it's hard.
and then
The
like tying
technique.
your own flies and everything, man, that's an art form. You know, it in some cases takes decades to master.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would much rather just zip a bait caster out there, even in a stream.
Give me a largemouth on a crankbait, not a.
I mean, I'll hit trout in the same stream that somebody's fly fishing in, but they don't. Most of the time, you're not allowed to. You can. There are casting seasons in a lot of those same places, and that's something I'm not super well versed on. I know that it exists, but I couldn't tell you when, why, or how.
I need to become more versed on that. Just being here and fishing the Ohio, it's a completely
That
different
was
animal.
that was part of the
Completely
culture
different
shock.
than like fishing, fly fishing the snake or the Yellowstone.
Well, so coming from the Great Lakes, right, to the Ohio River Valley, that was we didn't you didn't bring in catfish up there when I was a kid. If you knew you had a catfish on the line, cut that thing.
Cut it off.
Yep. Don't pull that up. It's garbage fish. Move down here, and people were going out specifically fishing for that because they're going to
Oh
eat
my
it.
God! Yeah, we're gonna fry it.
Whoa, whoa! Just wait. That was so far out of left field for me. Um, I've eaten catfish one time. Uh,
Like,
outside of going to a restaurant and eating it.
I think it's like anything else. It's got to be cooked right, or seasoned right. But it's hard to take the gaminess out of a out of a catfish.
Milk and lemons is what everybody says, but
It's a lot of milk and
I'm like,
lemons.
yeah, I don't know how you're getting that mud out of them.
Well, I mean, it is. It's just a muddy,
Mm-hmm.
earthy, gamey taste. Whereas, like, say, a walleye out of the, Lake Erie.
Yeah,
Oh man, fillet it, throw it in
right there.
fillet it right there,
Mm-hmm.
throw it in the fryer, and that thing's ready to go.
Yep, yep. Pike, walleye, muskie. Uh, that's all. I don't. Well, they put muskie in down at Cumberland, and I'm not a wildlife biologist, but I feel like that was a whoopsie.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably. Yeah,
yeah.
probably.
We'll see. We'll see in a couple decades how that went. I know they're struggling with the carp, and I'm told that's why they did it. But
It's funny how many people really don't even recognize that. So remember, we had the floods here
yeah,
recently. It hit southeast Kentucky pretty hard, but it would hit the Ohio River pretty hard, right? And so there was these little pools that someone pulled up a carp from. It was like like they were filming it on for TikTok,
yeah,
something like that, one of the socials, and went to put this thing back in the river, and so many people were like, "That's attaboy, go ahead and put that invasive right back into the river to compete against the native fish."
yeah,
Like it's funny how not everybody knows or
yeah. And I think it's with invasive species across the board, whether it be birds, um, big mammals, Aoudad.
how that.
You know, I hate calling the Aoudad invasive. They are, and one day we're going to do a standalone episode just based on Aoudad. Uh, but especially on the with the waters, right? Like the mussels. You see what the mussels are doing to the Great Lakes.
Oh yeah,
And even the Ohio River now. Uh, then that cat's out of the bag. I don't know how. I don't know that anybody knows how to fix that at this point. And the carp has become such a problem. Uh, and they have tried and tried and tried, at least in Kentucky. And I'll give Kentucky Fish and Wildlife all the props in the world for trying to deal with the carp. I don't think you ever get it. I think it's like wild pigs left unchecked. And at some point, I would also like to dive deep into the wild pigs, or lack thereof, wild pigs in Kentucky.
Kentucky, right?
Um, but in some places, you're never going to get rid of them. Louisiana, they're there forever. Georgia, they are there. Florida's the same way. Texas is the same way. And what's unfortunate is they would have been, it would have been manageable at one point, but then it turned into a cash crop.
Oh yeah,
Right?
oh absolutely.
The average pig hunt's $250 a day for somebody like you or me to come, from here to Texas to hunt pigs. You're gonna spend $250 a day, right? If you take a group of you and 5 of your buddies and
Oh,
you stay for 4 days, man, like
throw those guys in a helicopter now.
yeah, yeah. Texas actually just okayed it that you can now hunt Aoudad from helicopters.
Did they really?
Yeah, Texas is really gonna try to like stomp out the Aoudad. Um, okay, you want to hunt the Aoudad? You want to get them? You want to get those numbers way down? Open up that public land, baby.
Right. I mean, why? So we want to terminate these Aoudad. We want to eliminate them from being here, right? I get that. Who's hunting from a helicopter?
Mm-hmm. Not me.
Right? Like I mean, again. Now you've taken this species that would have become one of my apex hunts that I wanted to do, right? Like one of the pinnacles that I want to do. Like now you're going to price me out of it.
Yeah.
Well, why?
They already are. For a private land Aoudad hunt, even a DIY on private land in Texas, they have become unobtainable. Right? You're talking $2,000. I'm not. No.
I have my opinions on that.
$2,000 for an Aoudad.
I
love those animals. I respect them greatly. I'm not paying $2,000 to.
Yeah, but see, and I know that probably, again, one of the objectives of Over the Ridge is to be able to talk about these things. We want to celebrate the guys that go out and grind, right?
Yeah.
But the hunting industry, where certain people are taking it, and we will say, we can throw in like the state of Texas with something like that. You look at some of the conservation groups that have come out of Texas, like the Dallas Safari Club. These
Yeah.
big groups. It's all said big money.
Yeah.
What happens to the average guy that grew up, whitetail hunting in Texas? Are you taking this away from him?
Yeah.
And those are just things within our world that we, when I say our world, like within our hunting world, that we are going to have to, that need to be addressed at a certain point. Like someone's going to have to talk about these things because, I want my kids to hunt. I want my grandkids to hunt. I want this to be a place where we can. Now, it doesn't mean, again, I know we can get into some of the the 3 R's of hunting, and recruitment, are we going to recruit a ton of people and take our land? I know that's a whole another issue to talk there. But the one thing I don't want to do is to see hunters, people that truly care about this, people that have the passion like we do, and be priced out.
Yeah. And
it's not a rich man's game. This is a game for us all to do.
Yeah.
It's a primal game that we can all play.
It has to be. And with the helicopter hunts that you have put large scale Aoudad hunting in this premium spot that only a very, very, very small portion of the population is going to be able to afford to.
Right.
But that form of hunting alone will drastically lower the numbers of the species. Now, this is private land that they're doing this on, so 9 out of 10. Is that going to affect the public land numbers? I don't know, but I know where that Aoudad came from. The number of tags that they released has doubled every year for the last 3 years in a row. So there's an objective there.
Right.
And with like what Texas and U.S. Fish and Wildlife did with the Aoudad outside of El Paso to bring in the bighorn, the Aoudad are expendable in the eyes of not only the government, but I would say most hunting organizations. Which, at the end of the day, as much as I hate them being called it, like, that's poor man's sheep.
It is a poor man's sheep, yeah.
Most people will never be able to afford to experience a sheep hunt, right? But up until they became, I would say, I don't want to say greed stepped in, but up until people realized that you could get away with charging crazy amounts of money for an Aoudad, like, it wasn't a thing.
Right.
Everybody could do it. Everybody, it was like $300-400 to go hunt an Aoudad. And now Nilgai are the same way. Nilgai are another good one. Oh, it's this invasive species we got to get rid of. Well, why can't I go hunt one for under $2,000?
Let me take care of it. You got a problem, I got a solution.
Yeah.
But
you can go ahead and fix that.
This thing's falling down.
Yeah.
There we go. I was afraid to move it.
That's the only one I haven't screwed to the table. Well, on that side. It's not screwed to the table. I'll screw it to the table next week. Or maybe this weekend. But
I don't know, good conversations here.
Yeah.
Like that. I'm hoping like this is the goal of what we want to put out there is just good content,
Yeah.
kind of learning, as we go. But, we're do-it-yourself kind of people. We're do-it-yourself hunters. The whole Ridgeback thing is a do-it-yourself kind of podcast.
Yeah.
Want to celebrate the grinders, the people that are out there doing it, not the people who say that look at me.
Well, ultimately, obviously the vision for Ridgeback is transcending you and I. I would love to see this grow into something huge. I think that's what everybody wants, is something that they start from the ground. But I want it to be more than content and a podcast. Obviously, I'd love to get into gear production that doesn't require a premium of R&D.
Right. Oh yeah. It's all about the culture, like the gun. I mean, we come from the gun world,
Yeah.
so we love guns, right? I am an unashamed gun owner that will promote the Second Amendment, argue for the Second Amendment. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm also the guy that kind of on the other side of the spectrum. I'm going to be the guy that's out there. I want clean air. I want clean water. I want public lands. We want all this. So I think our culture in the hunting world, gun world, we need to come together for just to promote the culture of what the things that most of us agree on. I mean, and what a lot of people don't get either is the fact that it's the gun owners that are actually the largest contributors to conservation.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Everything you buy involving firearms.
And it's not even like hunting. You go buy 9mm Luger.
Yep.
For a pistol that you're
a portion of that money
going back into conservation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that gun, for example, just a 9mm pistol or 45 AC, whatever the case may be, that handgun that you will not use to go hunt deer with or Aoudad or anything like that, a portion of that money is going back into conservation.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered this too, and I bet you, if I dug deep enough, that there's probably stuff out there. But like a lot when we go on these Western hunts, yeah, there are some hunting companies that'll pants, for example, or something that you need a good pair of hunting pants, right? And something that I go buy at the local outdoor store is not going to meet up. However, the down jacket, the raincoat, all that stuff, I can buy at the local outdoor store and not use a hunting brand, and it's going to get me through. And I have a mixed bag of things that I like. It's not all hunting. Some of it's outdoors, just a regular general outdoor backpacking company.
I do believe that the hunting world, as far as gear goes, has gotten a little out of hand. It's gotten very much into what's the next best thing, and the next best thing's coming 6 months from now.
And new camo patterns.
Every 6 months there's new releases. Every year there's new camo, and I'm like, it's just too much. My grandpa, that dude wore the same bird vest for 35 years.
Right.
Right.
And someone once told me, you want to be a great hunter, and I took this to heart. Right, you want to be a great hunter. It's not about buying the next new camo pattern that comes out every 2 years. It's about putting yourself in this situation, or it's about putting yourself in that situation, that hunting situation, to make a shot. Practice shooting. Right? Like, go out there and practice shooting. Don't buy the next new camo jacket, because that's not going to help you shoot that animal better.
Something, again, that has come from, my time in gun shops and everything, is seeing the guys that they're buying a new rifle every year, or in the archery world, buying a new bow every year. Yeah. I've never understood that. And even if it were ever at the point that somebody was just giving it to me, I'm still going to use the bow that I spent 3 months, figuring out the year before. And I'm going to use that bow until there's something catastrophically wrong with it that I can't use it anymore. There's kind of been like a stagnation as far as speeds go. We're in this, and this is going to get kind of deep and nerdy for a second, but you can get into IBO speeds, and that doesn't matter, right? That's not real,
right? Unless
you're going to be shooting a straight shaft IBO or a straight IBO shaft. Like, it doesn't matter. As long, I would say, in all reality, if you're shooting above 240, you're going to kill whatever you want to kill.
Exactly.
You might not even have to be that fast, for millennia upon millennia. They were killing them with sticks, killing animals with sticks. We don't need to be. Is it? And then you get into the ethics question: is it more ethical to use a more powerful bow and all this stuff? I think at a certain point, but even the bow that I shoot now uh, was manufactured in 2019. It chronographs with my current arrow setup at 318 FPS. That will pass through a deer
Crazy.
every time
My last
out to
bow
50 yards.
last bow I purchased was 2020, so year after year.
Yeah. And okay, so I'm getting clean pass through out to 50 yards on a deer. The likelihood that I'm going to take a 50-yard shot on a deer with a bow is pretty low. I mean, it would have to be a once in a lifetime. It'd have to be a once in a lifetime buck.
Well, we're going to chronicle that when we do the total archery challenge.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get some field footage for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll send arrows at targets, especially at 3D shoots and stuff. I'll take a 100-yard shot.
Oh yeah,
all day long.
Why not?
I will shoot 90 yards comfortably with that bow, and I'll shoot it. I'll shoot a group with that. I would never risk shooting an animal that far though with a bow.
My comfort level is probably in the 50 to maybe 50, 60 range.
Yeah.
And that's at the kind of the farthest edge that I would feel comfortable.
And I think you have to draw that line for yourself preemptively, because if you get on in the field without saying, with a rifle or a bow, if you get out there with a rifle and you say, okay, my max distance is 600 yards, I will not shoot past that. All right, the likelihood that you're going to shoot past that's pretty low. If I, crack the rangefinder and it says, that thing's 720 yards away, I'm going to close 120 yards, to bring it into where I want it to be, that I can guarantee, because with the rifle with my Browning X-Bolt, I can promise at 300 yards or 600 yards, I can make an ethical kill.
Look at this guy name dropping already.
Yeah.
Good rifle, by the way.
I avoided the bow.
Yes, I didn't mention the bow name.
Yeah. But I said it in the last one.
What caliber is the X-Bolt? Is that the 300 Win? Okay, yes, that's what you shot the Aoudad with.
I shoot 200 grain Federal Terminal Ascent, and it seems to do the job. There's a particular Gems buck that didn't seem to care about it too much, but it seems to work pretty well. It laid that Aoudad down real fast, and that's a whole nother.
But that right there is the key, right? Like we in this realm, so many people want to talk about the next and best backpack, camo pattern, jacket, rainwear, cold weather gear. You know what? You go down the list, right? Like there's so much money into that, and it probably has its place.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's your setup.
Yeah.
What's your rifle? What kind of ammo works best? Best with it. What scope do you have? Those are the things that are going to really make that hunt successful or not. And a good pair of boots, maybe.
A good pair of boots. And there's so much conjecture between all that stuff. Everybody's got their favorites, right? I'm not going to say there's a lot of guys that I respect very, very highly in the hunting community, and especially in my circle, that swear by a certain brand of boots, and I hate them. I can't. Everybody's, they're the most comfortable thing in the world, and I'm like, it literally feels like I'm wearing a steel toe work boot. So
that's rough.
I'm not doing that. I do love Solomon though.
I was saying, stay in that's for me. I've found things in that world, that outdoor world, that backpacking world.
I actively hunt two different pairs of Solomons.
Yeah, I mean that world itself is. I mean, it's done it. I mean, it's helped me climb mountains. Why would it not help me?
Yeah.
Be successful on a backcountry hunt.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this stuff works. I mean, I know that I was kind of maybe I didn't even touch on this earlier, but I wish, talking about how firearms purchase, ammo purchases all support conservation. I would love to see in the whole outdoor realm, like you go buy a new pair of Solomon boots, that
Yeah.
portion of that goes to conservation.
Or think about like Arc'teryx when they became fashionable a couple years ago,
Oh yeah,
right? And all the celebrities were walking around in Arc'teryx rain jackets,
you're right. I mean,
right?
a $400, $500, $600 jacket, like
Yeah. If a portion of that stuff would have gone to conservation, that would have been phenomenal,
oh, absolutely.
you know?
And that would be my big push. I'm not big on taxes or anything like that, but I know if my money's going for good, and the Pittman Robertson Act
Yeah.
lays that out. We know exactly what's going on. I am fine with that, and I just wish that could transcend into the other kind of like outdoor spaces.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's ultimately what I would love to do with this is bring it to fruition what I see it as in my head and then really hammer on giving back to conservation, uh, doing everything I can to keep this around for my kids and grandkids.
Right.
Um, Not even so much keep it around, but and I think we're starting to see where the battlegrounds are going to be. It's not going to be we're not going to be fighting over populations of animals anymore. We're going to be fighting over the land to hunt them on.
Access.
Right? Yeah. We are going to fight a war for access, uh, and I think that's really where the money needs to go.
Metaphorical.
Metaphorical war. Yes. Yeah. For legal purposes, this is a joke.
Adam, if you're out there, I need you.
Uh, but yeah, that's gonna be the fight is access. It's not gonna be, I think, not entirely, but we've built a sustainable population of elk in this country, right? And deer, white-tailed deer aren't going anywhere.
Brought them back from a almost near state of an extinction.
Yeah, white-tailed deer in different states. You have your Goldilocks states that have just been awesome for whitetail forever. But even Kentucky has had, in my lifetime, has had a massive die-off of deer. Um, where it got to be slim pickings for a while. Um, and I think CWD is substantially overrated. I think that they say I don't want to, it is a problem. Is it the biggest problem in the whole world? No. Sooner or later, everybody's going to have it. It's going to be everywhere. It's just going to be something that we deal with. It's just going to be around, you know. Uh, I did always think it was funny because I don't even know I really don't know how you could say that we don't have it in Kentucky, that CWD wasn't here.
It's had to be. I mean, there's certain counties in Ohio where it's been detected, but I'm like, these animals travel.
Yeah.
Right? They pass on their genes, and those travel.
Yeah. I mean, that's how they got to proliferate the entire continent, right? They started somewhere and they just spread out.
Spread, yeah.
Yeah. And every buck that's born, when his mom kicks him out, he goes and finds a new home. And it's, sooner or later, you're going to get intermingling between a CWD infected deer and a non infected deer, and that deer's going to become infected, and that's how that stuff spreads. Right? We all know that. Kentucky has the benefit of being 2/3 blocked off by rivers from other states. But that border with Tennessee, dang.
Yeah.
Right? What are you going to do with that? If Tennessee has CWD, Kentucky has CWD.
Well, and I mean, again, like, that's where are the black bears coming from?
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee, West Virginia. I mean, just moving freely.
Yeah. What I don't understand, and it's not just black bears, and I know the thing with the elk, and that is a bone that I will pick on its own.
So this is just a high level telling you where we're going.
Yeah.
High level show telling you where to check out future
yeah
episodes.
Sooner or later, I will bully the state of Kentucky over their elk.
very
But where are
limited.
the bears? Why?
Where are they? Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we have bears up here?
Um,
Right. You got bears in Ohio. You got bears in Hamilton County before you got them in Boone County.
right.
That's nuts.
And I mean, they're in central like Berea, Kentucky, for
Yeah.
example. If you go down to hike the Pinnacles, there's big signs saying Barren area. I mean, that's essentially Lexington, just south of Lexington and
Yeah.
Richmond. I mean, you're talking an hour away from where we're currently at.
Are we that inhospitable?
Right.
Right. Is this area just that
Maybe
awful for
maybe this
wildlife?
part of Kentucky's so clean there's not enough garbage out. Like perhaps.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
No,
but
there's.
I
I
mean,
don't know. It's just always boggled my mind. I'm like, why aren't the bears here? But apparently, we'll have timber rattlers within the next decade
really?
here. Yeah. Yeah. Going off of the map, they're as far north as southern Grant County now.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I mean,
We have
all over the.
armadillos in Kentucky now.
Yeah, oh yeah, gosh, we were going to that land between the lakes and started seeing them hit on the side of the road. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, I mean, that's something you see deep south.
Yeah.
But we hit your time limit.
Yeah. Well, I
Okay.
guess we're gonna wrap this
We'll
up.
wrap this up. Well, I mean, we could go on talking, but that's what other episodes are for.
Right. Right. We're not gonna. We could do a 6 hour Q&A here. Uh, but yeah, no, I think we're gonna wrap it up.
All right, that's good.
So yeah. Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Jake, and
Thanks, Sean.
cameraman Sean.
Yeah.
He got the shout out. I don't think he was expecting that, but
Yeah. Uh, see you guys next time.
absolutely. Take care.